Hello everyone, my name is FlareBlitzed and welcome to Venus Improbable Dream. This is a story about a boy with social anxiety that is one day placed into a music club. You can find a link down in the description below where you can download this game for yourselves. Hemangioma. That's what my parents told me it was called. A growth of extra blood vessels clumped together to form a tumour. No one knows why it happens. Some people are just unlucky, I guess. Mine started appearing a few weeks after I was born. A slight discoloration of skin, barely noticeable at first, then slowly began to take over my face, little by little. They start off flat and grow bigger and bigger with time. After a point, they reach their limit and began to shrink, eventually disappearing altogether. Most children who have this condition lose them by the time they're 10. I didn't. Around the time I started junior high, the doctor started giving me all sorts of medication in order to get it to recede, but there were limited results. The main swollen bulge of the tumour shrank, for the most part, but other than that, nothing changed. I'm still left with a huge dark red patch of rough, rubbery skin on my face. I hate it. Surgery was discussed at one point, but considering how close to my eye this thing is, it would be risky. My parents decided against it. They said that I didn't need it, that I could still live a perfectly happy life the way things were, and that was that. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, so we're just gonna call that with that condition, and tumour sound like scary words. But in fact, these conditions are almost always harmless, so they're not scary at all. Well, not to everyone else. They still are to me, not because of what mine could do to me, but what it does to other people. I can't even begin to recall the amount of times a stranger has gawked at me on the street, or shudder in repulsion at the sight of my face. That, my friends, is what we call prejudice. The worst part is, I don't blame them. After a while, I began to feel like I deserved every mean comment, every snarky remark, and every playtime left alone, while everyone else had fun together. They were right. I'm ugly. You're not ugly. Every time I see it, touch it, or remember that it's there, I just want to die. My parents used to tell me that it didn't matter what I looked like, and that is entirely correct. That the people who were rude about it were the problem, not me. That's correct as well. They'd always insist I'd grow up just the same as everyone else. They were wrong. How could I hold a conversation with somebody with them, staring at the monstrosity on my face? How could I have ever been friends with no one who can stand to look at me? And how can my parents pretend that they're happy when their child is an outcast, a reject, a freak? I don't think they're pretending to be happy. They want the very best out of you. And I have no idea what it's like to live with this sort of thing because I've never had it. So I can't put myself in the shoes of this individual. I figured out pretty quickly that there was no point in trying to be normal. Someone like me could never fit in with any group of friends. They'd only keep me around so I could be the butt of everyone's jokes. I started doing everything I could to not be noticed. I put the absolute minimal effort into everything. I taught myself to be invisible. Yes, I felt lonely and isolated, but it was better than being picked on. It's just like that girl from the anime called Another, where everyone just literally ignored her. That's just the way I have to live my life now. I might be 17 and almost ready to face the real world, but as long as I have this condition, I'll never be able to face anything. Not even my own face. Save. Chapter 1. Curiosity. Really eye-opening, these kind of stories. Just another day. The other students around me are sharing whispered chatter, as usual. I sit right at the back of the room, so I can see everybody else in the class. More importantly, they can't see me. It's one of my safety barriers. You tend to make a lot of them when you have a problem like I do. Glancing back at my workbook, I let my eyes comb over the questions again. I've answered them all, but the incessant scratching of pens and papers tells me that everyone else is still working. It usually plays out this way. I've never exactly been smart, but with nobody to talk to and no wish to be noticed, I just put my head into my schoolwork. Thanks to this, I've never had any issues with low grades. The last thing I want is to be called out for not putting in enough effort. Wouldn't really help with the whole not being noticed thing. With nothing else left to do, I let my gaze move to the view out of the windows to my left. It's early June. I'm so glad it's not early June. So rainy season's probably going to hit us soon. The sky isn't exactly cheerful, turning more and more grey by the day, but at least it's warm. Is this set in Japan? Because I think that's when their rain season turns in, isn't it? Don't forget to read through pages 108 to 204 before the next class. Sensei's voice is so loud in comparison to the hush of the room, I almost flinch. His instruction must mean that the bell is about to ring for lunch. Looking up at the clock on the wall confirms it. Quietly, I start to pack my things away. My classmates aren't in the same hurry, as they tend to linger for a while, gossiping and doing whatever it is that friends do, before heading to the cafeteria. You wouldn't catch me doing either of those things. I have my own little ritual that I do every day. After finding a secluded spot not long after I first come to this school, I've always eaten there alone, away from prying eyes. It's more comfortable that way. Thinking about it makes me even more anxious to get there, and enjoy at least an hour of peace, before I have to come back to another room full of people. Remember, it's Wednesday, so you've got your science quiz coming up after lunch. The classroom erupts in a collective groan. I think I'm the only person who doesn't object. Hustling my bag onto my shoulder and leaning forwards in my seat, I find myself staring at the clock, watching the second hand tick by, waiting for the first acceptable moment to leave the room. The faster I can get away from everyone, the better. The wait feels impossibly drawn out, time seeming to slow down, but eventually the hands synchronize on the hour. The bell rings out shrilly in the corridor, acting like the starting gun of a race. I stand up from my seat before anybody else does, turning towards the door, gratefully to escape the discomfort of the crowded room. However, just as I'm taking my first step, another sound echoes across the classroom, coming from the opposite direction. What could this be? Akane! My entire body freezes in place. The teacher never calls on me. I'm the unremarkable kid who gets decent grades and never says a word. What does he want with me? I struggle to twist my rigid limbs back towards the front of the classroom, highly aware of many students glancing at me as I do. This is exactly the kind of thing that I hate. Attention. There's nothing in the world I want to do more than just run out of a room. But I guess I can't. Fixing my eyes on the floor in a desperate attempt to ignore everybody else's gazes, I force myself to walk up to Sensei's desk. To be honest, I'm surprised that he called on me like that in front of everyone. He is the one who let me sit behind the rest of the class, and who never makes me answer a question or read a passage from a textbook. He knows what I'm like. My anxiety has always been something that was just accepted since I came to this school. I think as long as my work is good, they'll let it slide. They don't tend to push me into anything. As I reach his desk, he steps back from it towards the blackboard. He probably realized how awkward this is for me, and is trying to put more space between us and the rest of the class. I take a lightning fast glance backwards at everybody. The noise level in the room has gone up considerably, friends starting to gather in groups and talk amongst themselves, and others are leaving the room to get to lunch. It gives me the slightest bit of relief to know that I'm no longer the centre of most people's attention. Still uncomfortable, I meet Sensei's eyes briefly to let him know that I'm ready to listen to whatever it is that he wants to say. Hopefully this will be quick. Akane, I've got a proposition for you. A highly unusual start to a conversation. The school has been in touch with your parents. We're all a little concerned about your progress here. My progress? He can't mean my grades. Your work is quite satisfactory, but there's been talk about your interactions of other Let me start that again. Your work is quite satisfactory, but there's been talk about your interactions with other students, or lack of, should I say. His facial expression grows a bit awkward for a second before he regains his usual serious gaze. He's probably not used to having to talk about those kinds of things. I'd thought that my solitary ways had been glossed over in the light of my decent schoolwork, but I guess I couldn't hide my problems forever. I understand that you have issues, but there's no point going into them now. I thank him silently inside my own head. The other teachers and your parents are worried about your future, Akane. What do you do once you leave school? It would be very difficult for someone like your nature to succeed in life. You understand? I know exactly what he's talking about. Before graduating and having to find some way of supporting myself, integrating myself into society, getting a job, it's too much to handle. Instead of facing up to it, I simply throw myself into a pleasant moment, living in some sort of fantasy that it'll never get to that point. I know I'm wrong, of course, but it's all I can do to keep myself going for now. From Sensei's doubtful expression, I can sense that he's probably aware of it. I nod tensely, and he exhales, seeming to have a lot on his mind. A suggestion has been put forward that may help you with this, something for you to try out. I don't like where this is going. If my parents thinking I'm enrolled into some kind of therapy group or get doped up on anxiety medication, you used to play the piano, didn't you? Huh? What's that got to do with anything? Yes? I mumbled the word quietly, still bemused. Of all the things I was expecting him to say, that wasn't one of them. Your parents tell me you quite enjoyed it as a younger child. Enjoyed is probably too strong of a word. I took up the instrument as something to do, since I never really had any friends to hang out with. I don't know why I chose a piano. It could have been anything really. I had private lessons for a while. It was a half-decent way to pass the time, although I never really put my heart and soul into it. After a while I just lost interest. I don't consider myself a musician, so I didn't feel bad about letting the hobby go. Besides, it's kind of impossible to practice when you don't have a piano at home, or the space to put a piano at home in the first instance. I never really thought about it since, having not played it for years. It's just another part of my life that fell by the wayside when I decided to isolate myself from the world as much as I could. I still don't understand why this is relevant to my anxiety. How would you like to try it again? I glance up at him after hearing his question, and he has an unsettling mixture of concern and optimism in his eyes as he searches my face for a reaction. It's been suggested that you join the music club as an after-school activity. I think it's the fear in my eyes that caused him to avert his gaze for a moment. The music club? I never joined a school club in my life. A room full of people expected to work together in close proximity to make something happen is the complete opposite of what I want. I want everything to stay the way it is. I want to sit at the back of a class and scrape by, unnoticed by everyone else. How on earth could someone like me join a club? Sensei clearly notices my internal panicking and tries to come across more gently as he continues. I understand that this is a difficult concept for you, Akane. The issue is that the longer you remain like this, the harder it will be to break out of it. Indeed, the longer you engross yourself into a habit, the harder it is to break that habit. I know he's right. I just can't stand it. All we'd like you to do is attend one session with the music club, to start with. See how you like taking up the piano again. You never know, it might prove to be a good experience. We don't have a pianist, as far as I'm aware. They'll probably be very pleased to have you join the group. A disgusting-faced hermit who hasn't practiced his instrument for years and can't hold a conversation with anyone? Oh yeah, I'm sure they'd be thrilled to have me. With every second that passes, I plunge further and further into disbelief that this is happening. As calm as Sensei is, I get the feeling that I'm being told to join the music club rather than asked, like it's an avoidable fate. Not an avoidable fate. I think your parents and Sensei are just looking out for you. Your name has been passed on to Kudo, the club's advisor, so he knows you'll be attending. This fact proves my suspicion exactly. If I were you, I'd head over there today after school. The quicker you begin, the quicker you can start making progress. I'm sure your parents will be very excited to hear how it goes. I'm sure they will. I can't believe they volunteered me for this without asking me. My thoughts threaten to consume me entirely, but I can feel Sensei's eyes boring into my face, waiting for some sort of answer. My skin starts to prickle, and my stomach jitters. I want to say no, but considering everything he said, I don't think it's possible. Squeezing my eyes shut and accepting my circumstances as grudgingly as anyone can, I nod my head. I'm not looking at him, but I can feel him relax. Great news. I'll send a message to Kudo. This could be the start of something very beneficial to you. I hear him step aside, collecting his things together at his desk, and I take this as an indication that our conversation is over. Prizing my eyes open again, I almost hope that this has all been a bad dream, and that I will wake up in my bed. That's not going to be the case. I'm sorry, man. Unfortunately, the classroom comes hazily back into view. It's real. A little too overwhelmed to think properly, I coerce my legs to work again, propelling me towards the door. Let's just focus on getting to my safe spot first. Akane. I hold myself again at the sound of my own name being called once more, my nerves somewhat frazzled. I don't turn away, simply waiting for him to speak again. What he says is something I can't bring myself to fathom as a possible reality. No one's going to laugh at you. Indeed. Why should people laugh at something like that? That's just prejudice at its finest, just judging someone simply because they have something that is different, or from other people's case, an alien thing to have. No. We all have different things going on in our lives. I have verbal and physical dyspraxia. That's an invisible thing, but people won't be able to learn that until they learn a bit about me, whereas other things are just right there on the surface. But because it's on the surface does not define them as a character. The hour since Sensei's announcement has passed both agonizingly slow and far too fast, and I don't think my inner monologue has been this loud inside my head for a long time. Part of me still doesn't want to believe the truth, but multiple times I've had to force myself to face reality. I've been put forward to try out the music club regardless of how I feel about it. My parents put me up to this without even saying a word, knowing how horrifying it would be for me. They would know that you would say no before they would contact the school about it. They knew you would decline their suggestions if they offered the opportunity to you. That's why they put it forward. Though I can understand about the fact that they didn't talk with you about it before doing actions about it. You're not that, and I'm not even going to read that, because you're not that. I don't blame them for wanting a normal child. You are a normal child, someone who's outgoing and makes friends easily. You could be like that. It's what every other set of parents has. Your parents has that as well, but they should know by now that it's never going to happen to me. It will happen to you. You just gotta get your feet out there. You gotta open up from that cage of yours and step forward into the world. I've carved out a routine for myself, and I don't want to deviate from it. You've gotta get out of that cycle. Besides, this music club situation is precisely the type of thing I try to avoid. Hold on, you haven't tried it yet? I know that they're trying to nudge me into facing my fears, but this is too much. You've got to face your fears. Like for me, for example, I don't like it when there's lightning at night when you're trying to sleep. Like, I can't stand it. But sometimes the only way you've got to get through it is to try and sturdy yourself and get through it. Phobia is a different thing. Every time I try to picture the scene, I'm terrified by what I see. A bright room, packed with friends who know each other well, all turning to face me in silent horror as I walk in, too afraid to look anybody in the eyes. Though I try to suck it up and just play the piano, I make a complete mess of it, severely out of practice. Everyone gets frustrated. The advisor tells me I'm not good enough. I freak out, trying to endure everyone's stares. Panic attack ensues. Total humiliation. That's what I imagine will happen. Yet I can't seem to prevent it. I can't bring myself to run away. The expectations of them and the teachers keep me chained to my obligation. So I carry on walking towards the music club room. My legs feel like they're made of lead as I force myself to take step after step. The closer I get to my destination, the further out of my comfort zone I became. The door looms ominously in front of me. Leaning towards it, I listen to the sounds coming from within. Many voices chatter animatedly, though I can't gauge from the noise alone how big the group might be. Several instruments are strummed, plucked, or blown occasionally. It sounds exactly like the kind of place I don't belong. That is the kind of place that you belong. That is the kind of place that anyone belongs. And also as well, you can't make music without emotion. Fear threatens to engulf me for a moment, and I close my eyes, swallowing my nerves as best as I can. Just do it, Akane. Just get through this one meeting. That's what Sensei has asked of me. Attend one session with the music club, to start with. All I have to do is fumble my way through this, however god-awful it may be, and then I can go back to Sensei and tell him that it's not for me, and I'll never have to see any of these people again. He can't be mad at me for trying. It's what he told me to do. Taking the deepest breath I possibly can, I do everything in my power to steady myself before pushing the door open slowly. And there we have it. A singular piano and a seat to perch yourself in. It's loud in here. Though most conversations continue in the wake of my arrival, a few people turn to look at me. I automatically drop my gaze, swiveling slightly so that I almost have my back on them. I can see the club's advisor out of the corner of my eye, sitting to the side of the group, wants to get this whole ordeal over with. I start shuffling towards him. He stands up as soon as I begin to move, probably having noticed my clumsy entrance straight away. Ah, Akane was it? I nod awkwardly, not quite able to say anything just yet. My nerves need to stop making me feel sick first. Welcome to the music club. You've come to us at a good time actually. Our last pianist dropped out a few months ago. We've been hoping to find another one, but haven't had any luck until now. I sneak a little glimpse of him. He seems a bit more easygoing than the other teachers. Not as well presented as Sensei. His lopsided grin almost makes me relax ever so slightly. I think that's the kind of approach that we're going for here. A less serious, bit more informal, but not being informal Sensei. However, I can't help but laugh internally at his enthusiasm. I'm sure he won't be as keen on me once he sees how bad I am at my instrument. He pauses for a moment, seeming to be waiting for me to say something, but I still can't bring myself to open my mouth. I manage the occasional single word to Sensei, but even then, we've only had about 3 conversations in the entire time we've known each other, including today's Kudo Sensei in this new territory. After a moment he straightens up, apparently realizing that he's going to have to take the lead. He turns to face the other students, and for a moment I begin to dread the inevitable class introduction. Everyone will definitely be staring at me then. However, after glancing back at me briefly, he seems to decide against it, seeing how tense I am. My whole body throbs in relief. Alright everyone, it's time to begin. He claps his hands as he speaks, and the Tangular students take notice immediately, extracting themselves from their friendship groups and taking their places. Everyone seems very obedient, or perhaps they just really enjoy the music club and can't wait to get started. I'm sure my presence has something to do with it. First of all, I'd like you to show our newest recruit what you're capable of. I think we'll have the batch piece, please. A few eyes move to land on me briefly, but overall nobody seems to question why I haven't introduced myself to the club. As I shuffle through their sheet music, I find myself praising whatever gods may or may not exist with the fact that no one has tried to talk to me. Kudo-sensei drags an extra set over from the back of a room, gesturing for me to sit down. Thankfully, it's not too close to the group, so I'll be able to feel somewhat separated from things while I watch them. I take the seat quickly. Once to get out of the way, after a few moments of preparation, a sudden hush falls over the room. Alright, everyone ready? He raises his arms in order to count everybody in, a thin, white conductor's baton in his right hand. I'd been so focused on shrinking down into my chair, I haven't even noticed him pick it up. On his signal, the group began to play. The noise fills the room instantly, jarring me a little, but the longer it goes on, the more I'm able to calm myself down. That's the power of music. It helps calm you down. Depending on the genre of the music. If it's heavy metal, then if you're calm, then I don't know what to say. With everyone focused on what they're doing, there's no opportunity for them to look at me. The piece they're playing sounds nice, although I know basically nothing about classical music. Unfortunately, I get the feeling that it's the main focus of this club. With nothing else to do and nobody's attention on me, I managed to peek at the students properly for the first time since I entered the room. There are 15 of them in total, 2 clarinet players, 1 oboe player, 2 trumpet players, 1 trombone player, 5 violinists, 2 viola players, and 2 cello players. I don't think a group of this size technically counts as an orchestra, but they still seem to be doing a decent job of playing the piece nonetheless. My gaze falling to rest at my feet again, I begin to feel a terrible sense of foreboding. There's no way I can contribute to this. It's obvious that these people have been playing their instruments for quite a while, and practice regularly, if they're able to play this well. I actually can't remember exactly how many years it's been since I touched a piano. My eyes drift over to the back of the room, where the music club's piano sits, having been temporarily neglected. It's a huge black grand piano. Must have cost a fortune. Yeah, pianos are one of the most expensive instruments to pick up on. Like, you'd have to go to dedicated clubs in order to actually practice a piano, having piano lessons, because for goodness sakes, pianos cost a small fortune. I slip my hands into my pockets tensely, as if that will prevent me from having an attempt to play the thing. Exhaling slowly and trying to ride out a fresh wave of nerves that courses through me, I sit and listen to the rest of a group performance. Once it's over, Sensei praises their efforts, giving them some short snippets of feedback. He then gestures towards a couple of the taller boys in the group, asking them to help him move a piano, and they put down their instruments readily to oblige. As they make their way to the back of the room, I feel my stomach begin to sink within me. Can't I just carry on watching? No, man, you've got to break out of the cycle. You got to break out of your own social anxieties, no matter how hard it is. I can't put myself into your position, but I can understand how something is very hard to break out of. I lean forward in my seat, my hands clenched inside my pockets tightly. There's nothing in the world that can convince me that whatever is about to happen will be anything short of humiliating. There's no such thing as being humiliated, or you thinking that you're humiliating yourself in a dedicated group. The group always gives feedback. Nice, constructive feedback. I can't play like these people. That alone is going to alienate me from the massively... Never mind my screwed up face. I hear the quiet squeak of the piano's wheel as it rolled across the room and into place, and the scuffle of the students moving to make space for it, but I can't bring myself to look up. The sound of the instrument itself rings out briefly as someone plays a chord on it, probably to make sure that it's still in tune. Alright, Akane, she's all yours. He shoots words at me casually, trying to help me feel at ease. My eyes are cast so far down that they're almost closed, but I can still feel the horrible prick of 16 faces all gazing at me simultaneously. Please don't look at me. Please don't make me do this. My heart beats loudly in my head, and I struggle to swallow. My mouth suddenly dry as a bone, trying to find some sort of focus. I recall the things I'd said to myself outside the club room's door that had pushed me to come in here in the first place. I'm only doing this once. I don't know any of these people. It's not like I'll be stuck in class with them for the rest of our school lives. They won't be there to constantly remind me how badly I messed this up. Come on, Akane. Just this once. Just this once. I force my body to spring up out of my chair before it has a chance to do anything else. The silence is deafening, almost louder than the music they'd been playing a minute ago. I make my way awkwardly to the piano, taking a seat on the stool in front of me. I'd expected to hear whispering, people gossiping about me, trying to figure out what the hell is wrong with me, but the room is completely void of any noise whatsoever. Unsure whether this is a good thing or not, I do my best to settle into my seat. Now, your homeroom teacher told me you had private lessons as a youngster. Have you played the piano at all recently? They're all waiting expectantly. I've got to make some sort of effort. No, not... My words dry up. Luckily, Sensei just starts talking again, as if I'd said a full sentence. Well, that's alright. None of us were musical prodigies when we started here. Exactly. We all started from step 1. A quiet laugh ripples around the group, And though this situation is still excruciating, I appreciate the slight break in the atmosphere it provides. Hey, I said more than one word this time. Just about. Let me grab you some sheet music, and we can see how you get on with it. He half jogs over to a table at the edge of the room, which looks as though it's got several stacks of books on it. After finding what he wants, he brings it over to me, placing it on the piano's music stand. There, I've chosen the piece they've just played. Since you've already heard it once, are you familiar with sight reading? I nod. My old piano tutor always makes me practice sight reading at home, so I could at least develop that skill while I was away from the piano. Great. Take a minute to look over it before we play. He nods at the rest of the group, and they take the hint, breaking into quiet conversations in order to give me a chance to familiarize myself with the music. I look at the page in front of me, but before I could really absorb anything, Sensei moves a little closer to me, leaning down slightly. Don't worry, Akane. Everybody has a shaky star. No one's expecting a masterpiece. I glance briefly at him, and he smiles in a relaxed manner before striding away towards the front of the room. He really does seem to be going out of his way to try to put me at ease, although I get the feeling that his casual nature is quite genuine. Genuine. Putting my focus back to the task at hand, I look over to the music sheet. Thankfully, the various notes, rests, and performance marks running along the staves seem to make sense. A strange nostalgia rushing back to me, although I can't say it's particularly fond. It doesn't do anything to make me feel any more optimistic about the situation, but squishing my fears as best as I can, I place my hands onto the keys gingerly. I spend a short while reading the music, mapping out the notes I'll need to play with my fingers, miming the piece over the top of the keys. It's not incredibly difficult, but that doesn't mean I'll be able to play it well. After what feels like only seconds, Kudo-sensei claps his hands again, calling the back room to attention. A massive rush of anxiety charges through my stomach. Although, I think we're ready to start. Remember to keep firmly to tempo all the way through. We don't want to take Akane on a runaway train ride. Oh dear, another laugh that hits the air, louder this time, and then everyone settles down, readying their instruments. I feel as though my nervous breathing is so loud it's going to put people off. Hovering my shaky hands over the keys, I hope for some sort of miracle to get me through this. Time seems to pause as Kudo-sensei's hands remain fixed in the air. The baton is in his grasp once more, and then he moves it fluidly, counting everybody in. Oh god, this is horrible. My eyes jerk erratically between the sheet music and my hands, trying to keep track of everything at once, and my fingers feel so wooden, I can't move them properly. Exactly as I'd expected, just this once. That's what I keep telling myself over and over again. as I plonk my way through what is possibly the most awkward and unappealing piano performance of all time. It seems to go on forever, and when it finally comes to a close, my whole body crumbles in on itself, exhausted despite barely doing anything else. I don't even dare to imagine what everybody must be thinking. I simply sit there, eyes in my lap, bracing for impact. When Kudo-sensei speaks again, I almost flinch. Alright, well, a bit shaky, but not bad, considering you haven't played in a while. I'm sure once you start practicing again, you'll be back up to speed. That's generous. If a whole room bursts out laughing at what I've just done, I wouldn't blame them. Let me give it another run through, shall we? And slow down on that institute, will you? He waves a hand towards the oboe and trombone players, grinning. This isn't Flight of the Bumblebee. Okay, I'm not sure what that's a reference to. Several of the other students burst into loud giggles this time, and the oboe player is playfully shoved by the guy next to him. A tiny part of me wants to laugh along with them. This club is a lot more relaxed than I had initially thought for. However, I'm still completely convinced that this is not the place for me. It definitely is. You need to give not only yourself a chance, but your co-students a chance. The words were still on the screen there as it faded in and out. We continued to play for a while, practicing the same piece several times. I'm not entirely sure whether I get any better with each run through or not, but at least I'm still breathing and conscious. Internalizing my amusement, I laughed darkly at myself. At least I haven't straight up died at the piano from embarrassment. The situation hasn't exactly gotten any more comfortable, and in all honesty, I still can't wait to get out of here. As if reading my thoughts, Kudo-sensei announced something I hadn't expected. Alright, you can break now. As though he flicked a switch, the noise level in the room goes up dramatically. People begin chatting loudly, moving their music stands and instruments into smaller groups. I'm a little confused. I thought music club went on for 2 hours, but it can't have been that long already. Thankfully, Kudo-sensei appears at my side again to inform me of what's going on. The second half of each club meeting is dedicated to free practice. You can get together with a few people and work together, or you could just stick to yourself. It gives everyone a chance to go through their individual paths and get help from others if they need it. It'll be especially beneficial for you, not having a piano at home. I nod, although I feel as though I'm on autopilot somewhat, even if I'm by myself. I don't think I'd feel comfortable attempting to resharpen my severely dwindled piano skills in the same room as everybody else. I'm already the worst musician in this club. I don't want to keep reminding everybody of it. You take your time and get to know that sheet music better. We still have plenty of other pieces to play here in the club, but you might as well start here. He heads back to the sheet he'd been sitting in when I'd first arrived, picking up some large notebooks. I don't know about this. I take a discreet glance at the students around me. Some of them have retrieved large acoustic panels from the back of the room, heaving them into place around their little subgroups. It dulls the sound a little, enabling each group to hear themselves better, and not bother everybody else as much. But despite this near seclusion, I still don't feel comfortable enough to practice. I have to admit, I'm still shocked that not a single one of the other club members has tried to talk to me this entire time. My own classmates that I see every day are very used to me by now, and even then, they sometimes break into conspiritual whispers and glance at my expense. I've been expecting the same treatment here, but instead everyone just carries on with things as if I'm not in the room. Perhaps Kudo-sensei specifically instructed them all not to interact with me. That's not the case, after hearing how bad my anxiety is from sensei. That doesn't make me feel great. A little dejected, I take another quick look around to see how many seats of eyes are on me. To my surprise and relief, the answer is 0. Standing up, my legs a little wobbly, I make my way quietly over to a chair that I'd been sitting in at the beginning of a club meeting, my bag still discarded next to it. The collective noise of the other students rehearsing drowns out my footsteps, and I cross the room blissfully unnoticed. Packing up my bag and swinging it up onto my shoulders, I cast a cursive glance at Kudo-sensei. He's deeply engrossed in whatever he's doing, twirling a pen absent-mindedly in his hands between scribbles. I should just leave. I've done what I came here to do. I tried it once. Yes, I'd be ducking out early, but I'd still battled my way through the traumatic ordeal of forcing myself to play alongside the group. They can't ask any more than that. I take a breath, steeling myself of potential questioning when I go to exit the room. However, as I'm standing quietly, giving myself up, my eyes pick up on a new sound, something completely separate from the noise of the club members practicing and talking. Something coming from the opposite direction. A flute. I didn't notice any flute players in the group before. In fact, I can't be a club member. They're all here in the room with me. So what is it? Oddly curious and also eager to remove myself from the cacophony of noise, I begin to cautiously follow the sound, feeling self-conscious and I Kudo-sensei as I move towards the other side of the room, but he still doesn't notice me, busy with his notebooks. Leaving the throng of the main room behind, I find myself edging slowly down a corridor that I hadn't realised was here before. Peering down it, I catch sight of a door on the left-hand side. I guess it's a store cupboard, but the more I shuffle towards it, the louder the sound of the flute becomes. Has somebody left a CD playing or something? Putting my ear up to the door's cool surface, it becomes clear that the sound is definitely coming from the inside. I feel a little nervous about entering whatever room this is, but at the same time I already know that everybody in the club is currently in the main room. So there can't be anybody in here. It makes this strange turn of events all the more intriguing. I take hold of the door handle delicately, glancing back down the corridor for a moment in case someone has noticed I'm missing and has come looking for me. I'm still alone. Facing forward again, I press the handle down, pushing the door open gently. I hadn't been prepared for the sight of the other side. Hey, so I'm practicing the flute. Oh. At the sight of another person, my body immediately tenses up, my eyes widening in shock, but after a moment of standing there, it appears as though the girl hadn't realised that I'm here. Her back turned to me, she continues to play, the breathy hum of the flute echoing around the room, much louder now that I'm here with it. What is she doing here? I thought I'd met all the club members. They do everything as a group. Even I wasn't allowed to sit it out, and I'm not sure I've even technically been accepted as an official member yet. What makes her different? Bemused and a little rattled, I think about backing out of the room slowly. If I can close the door quietly enough, she might not know that I was ever there. However, the longer I stand there awkwardly in the doorway, the more the soothing sound of her flute fills my head. It's quite nice. Despite my intent to leave, my legs won't seem to move, so against my better judgment I hover in place. The girl looks almost serene as she plays, her lips pursed in well-practiced pose as she blows gently across the flute's mouthpiece. Perhaps it's just the piece she's playing, but I start to feel a subtle hint of something other than fear. Although I can't identify it, drinking in the peaceful scene, I shift my weight to the opposite foot, having relaxed ever so slightly. This proves to be a mistake. Oh dear. Oh dear, what have we got ourselves into, folks? Oh, no. There's a squeaky floorboard. Crap. I leaned against the door too hard and it creaked audibly. The girl gasps quietly as she hears the sound, her head weeping back around to look at me. I automatically snap my face away, the rest of my body freshly frozen in alarm. My heart begins to hammer within my chest. Sorry. I manage to spit the word out, but there's no response. daring myself to look back as quickly as I can. I glance at her. Her expression is packed as she stares hard at me, seeming thoroughly disturbed, and I instantly know that it's my face that startling her. I don't think it's your face that startled her. I think it's just the noise behind her that startled her. I have to get out of here. Pulling myself together, I stagger backwards into the hallway, the motion of which causes the door to close loudly. Feeling ragged and a little upset, I turn to flee the scene, trying to gather myself and walk as calmly as possible. What was I thinking? The sight of the girl's terrified eyes as she looked at me stays burned into my memory. I must have repulsed her. A horrible clench in my chest. I rejoined the main club room, peeking around the corner to see if the coast was clear. Everything is exactly as it had been when I left. The other club members are locked in their mini practice groups, and Kuro-sensei still has his nose in his work. Bracing myself and hoping not to give anybody else a reason to look at me, I begin my escape, closing the room as subtly as I can. Thanks to all the noise, coupled with my well-honed skills of near invisibility, I'll make it to the other side without anybody calling out to me. Pulling the door open, I feel a great surge of relief wash over my entire body as I step through it, the tension I've been holding all this time rushing out of me. Free once more, there's only one thought running through my head after all that unfamiliarity and fear. I really don't want to go back there ever again. Home at last. After the day I've had, even the sight of a lounge which I don't really spend any time in is welcoming. I stride across the room towards the stairs, but I'm distracted halfway by something moving in the corner of my vision. This must be Mom, yeah. Kakeru! She startles me slightly as she steps towards me, and I come to a halt, noticing that Dad is behind her, standing up from the couch. How was your day? Did you go to the music club? I should have guessed. Having put me up to the whole club thing, somewhat forcibly, I might add, they must be dying to know how it went. It's a shame I'm going to have to disappoint them. Yeah, I can't muster any more than that. I don't have the enthusiasm. And not only that, but I still feel a bit betrayed that they would eventually volunteer me to do something that they know I would hate. My eyes are fixed on the carpet, but I can still tell that my mother is excited by my response. That's great! How did it go? I've got to say something, but can't seem to prise my mouth open. It's like this even with my parents. We used to be closer, but after I started withdrawing from everybody, I guess I walled myself off from them too. I don't think it was entirely intentional, but once you start seeing other people as something to be avoided, you kind of just go away with it. They're probably unhappy about it, but it is the way it is. I feel myself start to squirm slightly under their combined gazes. I know they're my parents, but I still don't want them to look at me. Used to my long silences by now, they wait patiently for me to answer. I didn't like it. That's my eloquent summary of the whole thing. The only way I can squash my feelings about my unsettling experience of the music club into one inadequate sentence. Though I still don't look at my parents, I can practically feel their disappointment from here, although I'm guessing that they might have seen this coming. Well, you tried it, son, and that's the important thing. Yeah, you used your own legs to get there. You could have just outright denied it, but something made you go there. I do like that about Dad. He doesn't push me as much as Mum does. Not that she's aggressive or anything, but out of the two of them, I can say with near certainty that this whole music club thing would have been her idea. Every now and then she tries to nudge me gently towards something new, in the hope that it would coax me out of my shell. I can see where she's coming from, but what she doesn't realise is that this shell is impenetrable by now, strengthened through these years of purposeful exile. It might be the most impressive creation of my life. It's not coming off. Even still, I don't think it's impressive at all. in the actual ways of being dedicated to something, it could be impressive, but the actual topic in hand and the actual subject in hand, it's not something to be impressed by at all. Even still, it seems as though she maintains a little spark of hope that things will change. It was brave of you to do that, Kakeru. I'm sure you can do it again. I steal a quick glance at her. She's regarding me with an optimistic expression, and I don't like it. I bet it was nice, playing the piano again after all these years. Sensei told me that the club's advisor is a great teacher. He could probably help you to play even better than you used to. Yeah, he probably could, if I was interested. I exhaled deeply, knowing exactly what Mum is trying to hint at. She wants me to keep going, become a proper club member, and take it up permanently. I sense both my parents fidgeting, and the air in the room is getting more and more tense. I need to end this conversation. Before I could pull a sentence together, Dad beats me to it. If you don't want to, it's not the end of the world, but a second try might be easier than the first. Yes, the first time is always the most difficult. He says it as though presenting a fact, rather than attempting to pressure me into it. Mom nods her head enthusiastically. Definitely. I'm sure once you get used to it, you'll really enjoy it. I doubt it. My legs almost start walking on their own in my desperation to get away from this uncomfortable subject. I've had enough stress today. I don't want any more. Maybe. I leave him with that single unconvincing word, shuffling away slowly towards the stairs. Getting the message, but I don't want to talk about it anymore. They let me go, nodded in returning to the couch. We don't speak much at all nowadays. The talk we just had is the longest one I can remember for God knows how long. It makes me feel even more disappointed as a son. And yet, I can't change my ways. The TV screen flickers in a stream of garnished colours again as I beat the level. Video games are pretty much the only thing I do in my spare time. Having finished my homework, I started playing straight away, glad to be able to unwind after such a mentally demanding day. I have to admit though, I still feel a little unsettled, and I know exactly what's causing it. Resting my controller in my lap momentarily, I grimace and my mind dredges up the things I don't want to have to comfort. To the music club. Sorry, to confront. My parents want me to make friends again so badly. I do too. For you. Do I want the same thing? Casting my mind back in time, I recall being very small, standing at the edge of the playground, feeling too shy to try and join in with everybody's ball game and social cliches. Back then I would spend time with the other quiet kids. We'd sit off to the side somewhere, playing handheld games, consoles, and talking about our favourite cartoons. I suppose that was friendship. We didn't have sleepovers at each other's houses, and we didn't run around boisterously in the streets after school, playing tag or whatever. I was never close with anyone, but our little break time get-togethers still counted for something. I think my frail sense of optimism was still intact then. I don't remember being too worried about things, assuming that I'd end up with proper friends once I started high school. No, those frailness stacks. If anything, the opposite happened. Yeah, the nervousness stacks. If you leave it too long, it all stacks. Encouraged by my parents, I'd naively go up to people introducing myself and trying to join in with their conversations. I figured that some people might be rude about my appearance, as that's just the unfortunate nature of life. But I wasn't expecting people's discomfort around me to be on such a large scale. The amount of bullies increased hugely, and those that were left didn't really know how to handle me. It seemed as though anyone who was nice to me got tainted with the freak label and teased via association. This meant that most people tended to avoid me like a plague, looking alarmed when I spoke to them and checking over their shoulders in case anyone saw us together. After a while it became obvious to me that making friends was something I was no longer entitled to. along with a happy school life. I noticed that my parents were becoming more and more sad too. They only want the best for you. Every time I came home with a new bruise, or crying because of somebody's cutting words, their faces would darken. It was then that I realized I needed to remove myself from the public eye as much as possible. If I was never around for people to bully, never give friendlier people a chance to reject me, then life would be easier. My parents wouldn't have to witness failure after failure. I just ceased to exist in the eyes of my fellow students. So that's what I tried to do, and for the most part I succeeded. Life became quiet. I became a background character in the narrative of my own story. Though my heart still beat and breath still filled my lungs. I was as lifeless as the plastic of the chair that currently supports my weight. A pointless existence. Pointless, but quiet. You're not pointless. It's the best I can do. I might graduate from compulsory education next year, but that doesn't mean that anything will change for me. I'll be the outcast no matter where I go, and there's no point denying it. That's why I can't join the music club. Sitting here zoning out with my controller hanging loosely in my hand, I accept that as the truth. I'll never belong in a place like that now, and I don't think I'll ever will. Besides, the way that girl had looked at me was awful. Her horror at my disfigurement had been clear as day, and her eyes are now permanently etched into my brain. Retrieving my consciousness from the realms of deep thought, I fixed my gaze on the TV screen again, starting a new level. I have no choice but to say no. Okay folks, we're going to leave things off here. Thank you so much for watching folks. My voice at the end there was really low, much lower than usual, because I somehow in a way really feel this character and what they're currently going through. I had nowhere near as much social anxiety as this character is going through, because when I was in school I did make friends and I did have close friends. I had people I'd just say hello to, but in a way I can feel what this guy is going through at this point in time. Like the fear that you think that everybody else is just giving you the evils, when that's not the case. You just haven't given them chance for them to be able to express themselves, and you haven't given your chance to be able to express yourself in front of them. So in a way, this has been a very emotional start, a very powerful start mind you as well, to this tale. And I'm hoping that more people go along with with stories like this and play this game for themselves, so that they can also look through this game for themselves and see what kind of conclusions that it can bring out for themselves from this game. So I know a lot of stuff that I've said in the past few minutes didn't make sense, but when emotions build up, that kind of can happen when you're mixed with emotions. But thank you all so much for watching folks. This has been Venus Improbable Dream for the moment, and we'll see each other's in the next time of this game. Please check this game out in the description below. There's also a Kickstarter link as well to where you can find it. And guys, take care of yourselves.